Now, as a financial planner, I see this day in, day out. People generally have their day-to-day spending in order, they've got their savings in order, but the one area where they really struggle is their pensions. And this is almost because it's treated a bit like a black box. People don't really start paying attention to their pension until they are near retirement. So in today's video, I'm going to talk you through exactly how much you should have in your pension by each age in order to retire at 60. I'll be doing this for couples, so this will be taking into account the pension pot for both of you, because generally you should be looking at your pension pots as a combined pot rather than an individual. And I'll also be factoring in things like defined benefit pensions and how these can impact on the actual pot size you need at each age. But if you're new here, my name's Ben, I'm a financial planner, and my aim is to help as many people as possible gain more clarity and confidence around their finances. Okay, so firstly, let's actually unpack how pensions work, because I think for a lot of people, this is an area we are taught very little about in general, let alone at school. And I think for a lot of people, it can be difficult to actually understand how a pension works and how you actually access it when it comes to retirement. So the way of looking at your pension really is like a bank account. And what I mean by that is your pension will be invested in a variety of different ways, and it will grow over time between now and when you retire. Clearly, when you're looking at a pension pot size, you might be thinking, okay, well, that's great. I might have, let's say, £100,000 in my pension, but how do I actually use this to fund my lifestyle when it comes to retirement? What most people do these days is they actually leave their pension invested for the duration of their retirement. And the way in which that works is you might take, say, £5,000 a year from that pension. So in short, the way to look at it is you've got a pot of money there. It's basically like a bank account. You can access it as and when you need to, but there are various tax implications of taking more or less of it at one time. Okay, so now let's move on to the assumptions. So you can see on screen here the assumptions we're using in this example. Now I've modeled two different types of lifestyle in retirement, and these are based on the retirement living standards definition. So one is a comfortable retirement, and for a comfortable retirement as a couple, you are deemed to need £60,000 a year of spendable income. So about £5,000 a month. For moderate, this is about £44,000. And you'll see in both scenarios, I've actually reduced the expenses. So that's the key thing here. These are the expenses, not the income levels. So you can see these have been reduced at age 75. And the reason for this is because as financial planners, we typically see that the first kind of 15 to 20 years of someone's retirement, they're doing a lot more with their money. They're going out, they're spending it, they're going on holiday. But there becomes a time where you slow down naturally, you're perhaps not in the best of health. So you can see here that the expenses are reduced by about 25% in each scenario at age 75. I've also assumed that your mortgage is paid off by the time you get to retirement. And I've also assumed that you've both got the full state pension entitlement. And as we sit today, that is about £12,000 each. I've also assumed that you're contributing the auto-enrolment minimums into your pension. So that's 5% from you and 3% from your employer. And this is based on the average UK salary of £40,000. I've also assumed you're taking a balanced level of risk with your pension. So roughly 50% higher risk, 50% lower risk. And as with my previous videos, you will know that we like to aim for a 80% chance of success. So what does that mean? So basically what we're doing in this, when we're calculating the pension pot size you need at each age, we are saying based on the last 100 years of market data, because that will impact how long your money can last. Because as I say, your money will be invested throughout retirement in this example. We want to have a 80% success rate. So what that means is in 8 out of the 10 scenarios, based on the last 100 years of market data, you would have had sufficient income and assets to meet your expenses throughout retirement. And again, we're modeling this assuming you live to age 95. Now, very aware that the average life expectancy currently in the UK is more like 85, but to be conservative, we're going to assume you live to 95. So effectively a 35-year retirement from the age of 60. Okay, so let's get into the numbers. So starting at age 30, what pension pot size do you need as a couple to be on target for a comfortable retirement? And that figure is £120,000. So again, it's important to factor in that when I'm going through these figures, these are the combined amounts. So you don't need to have an equal split. So let's say in this example, one of you might have £100,000, one of you might have £20,000. So between the two of you, you're roughly on track for a comfortable retirement. And for a moderate lifestyle in retirement, that figure is £32,000. And again, the makeup of this between the two of you doesn't make too much difference. Just looking at your total pension pots as a whole is the best thing to do. Okay, moving on to age 35. For a comfortable retirement, you should have a pension pot between the two of you of about £186,000 at this point. And for a moderate retirement, you should be aiming for a pension pot between the two of you of about £76,000. Moving on to age 40. For a comfortable retirement, the pension pot size to be aiming for is £280,000. For a moderate retirement, you want to be aiming for somewhere around £136,000 between the two of you. Okay, and age 45, we are looking for £370,000 to have a comfortable level of retirement and about £200,000 for a moderate level of income in retirement. And finally, age 50. For a comfortable retirement, at this point, you should have about £530,000 between you in your pensions. And for a moderate level of lifestyle in retirement, you want to be aiming for around £290,000 between the two of you. Now, there are a few things to mention here that actually can change the shape of the pension pot size you need. But before we go any further, if you're getting some value from this video, please do consider subscribing because it really would mean a lot to me. Okay, so let's actually look at these numbers. So when we're talking about a comfortable level of income or lifestyle in retirement, we're aiming for spending about £5,000 a month. Now, coincidentally, the average salary at the moment in the UK is £40,000. And you can see on screen here that after tax, this equates to about £2,500 a month. So between the two of you, if you're currently earning the average income in the UK, you're actually having about £5,000 come into your bank account each month. Now, the key thing to remember is that we are assuming you're going to have no mortgage in retirement. And for most people, whilst they're working, this is their biggest expense. So when we're looking at a comfortable level of retirement being £5,000 a month, we actually need to think, okay, well, do we actually need that much? If we're getting £5,000 a month into our bank accounts now, and we've got our mortgage to pay, do we really need the exact same amount in retirement? So if you're looking at the comfortable lifestyle figures and thinking, okay, we're quite a way off that, hopefully that gives you a bit of comfort that you actually don't need £5,000 a month to have a comfortable, or I suppose a similar level of lifestyle that you've got now. Now, the next thing to speak about is defined benefit pensions. And I've had a lot of people in the comments talk to me about defined benefit pensions and how that actually impacts the pension pot size you need. So very, very roughly, for every £1,000 per annum of DB income that you're going to get, you can probably deduct about £20,000 off the pension pot size target. So as an example, let's say you've got a pension, a defined benefit pension with a previous employer, and that's going to pay you £5,000 a year in retirement. You can deduct approximately £100,000 off of the pension pot target sizes that I've discussed. Okay, so we've gone through the figures, we've talked about the defined benefit pensions and how they have an impact. So if you're still looking at these figures and thinking we're quite a way off that, what can we do to try and improve the position for you? Now, generally there are three levers we can pull. The first is increasing contributions, and you'll be surprised, even just a small contribution increase over 20 or 30 years can make a massive difference. So the first thing I would say is look at the contributions you're making. As I've said in previous videos, you may see that if you've got a workplace pension, if you increase your contribution, your employer may match that. So it's really worth looking into that because that can be invaluable for your longer term financial plan. Now, the second lever is the retirement age. Now, clearly, again, as I've said in previous videos, even pushing that back from 60 to 62 can make a massive difference. And that's because you've got 2 years more of saving into your pension, and you've also got 2 years less, in theory, of that pension having to provide you with an income. And the third is the investments you are holding within the pension. Now, the figures we've gone through, as I say, have been based on a balanced level of risk. But just to give you a rough ballpark, if you were to increase the risk in your pensions, let's say you're going for 80% higher risk, 20% lower risk, that actually reduces the pension pot size you need by about 10%. And that's because over the next 20 to 30 years, because you are taking a high level of risk, you would expect that your pension pot size is going to grow a lot quicker. So therefore, the pot size you need by each age is reduced, as I say, by about 10%. Okay, so what actionable steps can you take away to actually work out if you're on target and what you can do? First step is to write down both pensions that you've got. So look between the two of you, how much have you got in your pensions? And I don't mean guessing. I need you to go away and actually look at the statements from your pension providers and see exactly how much you've got saved between. The next step is to add them together because, as I say, when you're in a couple, you want to be looking at your finances jointly. And doing this really does give you a clearer picture as to whether you're on target or not. The third step is to adjust for any defined benefit income. So as I say, roughly for each £1,000 of defined benefit income you've got, you can deduct about £20,000 off the pension pot target size I've discussed. Next, you want to be looking back to the data and the tables I've provided and comparing this to your age. And then from there, you can work out if you are on target for a moderate level of income in retirement or a comfortable. Now, as I've said, if you're below moderate, that's not a problem. There are still plenty of things you can do. You know, if you're 20 or 30 years from retirement still, you have a lot of time to make changes and actually ensure you are on track. So again, look at those three things I've discussed in terms of the contributions you're making, the retirement age you're aiming for, and the investment risk you're taking within your pension to see what adjustments you can make to ensure you're on track. So look, there's a lot here to unpack and there's a lot for you to digest and actually understand. So if you're confused or unsure about where you're at, what I would suggest doing is booking a free clarity call with me. You can find a link to my Calendly in the description, and this is a free 15-minute call just to understand a bit more about you and work out if I think I can help you with your financial plan. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you got some value from it, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.